Hello, my name is Anthony Wall. A lot of times when I put the thing there's a list that's just a little bit longer than we could put for a title, for example, or that we could put in Facebook. I'm blocked off from Facebook, but they have my page there, making it look like I'm not, with FBI involved with it. And the difference of FBI, because Facebook has people involved too, personally and professionally, criminally foreign influence with the principal upskirt nature, and more medical offenders of kids and adults, elderly, veterans homes. These are people with judges and prosecutors and their family members with other branches of government, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence. Then they want to pretend they're shown they need to hide how they exploited. It's supposed to be separations of powers, all these things are simultaneous. But they already had collusion slash S, increasingly with child offenders at Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison there, increasingly involved with the people that run the prison, have been involved with crime scenes, including a body dumping spot with their and people next to it with a serial killer. Even if that was made up, that guy personally in that body dumping spot and the spots next to it before the World Trade Center attack have recorded collusions with courts, family members, intimate ties, foreign and domestic, military, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the FBI director, Robert Luskin, his co defendants, their lawyer. These are people that, with the news, attach me to fake conversations about legal cases with people that associate with federal criminals in the relative cases, including with the Ninth Circuit Court. These are people that post dated legal papers to change how they were timely brought to the Ninth Circuit Court and time stamped properly at Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center tower before the attack. And then right before the attack, or sometime before the attack, and right before the attack, they showed the judges, it was proven afterwards, they had changed the date of the legal papers from inside the court and shown that to the panel of judges. So the court itself, too, and names on all sides of that case, were recorded involved with digital crimes against me. And they don't know to end with the news, too. Everyone's attaching me to fake and changed communications and totally, since I was a kid, as the ones that were leading up to the World Trade, before the World Trade Center attack. I didn't know their names, but former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and Hartford Court's families and intimate ties. Also, with a whole bunch of people from other countries, people associated with mayors. And increasingly, they've been making confessions and demonstrations tied to this while pretending other. In other words, they have cover-up sequence shifts with the ninth with the Capitol attack. These are increasingly people next to the state capitol of Connecticut and at the state capitol of Connecticut, involved with all kinds of predicate acts with fax methods, like wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, to hide how they did this, including the ones speaking about crimes. They had and have collusion slash S with all kinds of natures of crime scenes. Increasingly, there are people with the name Leahy and Brian Silver who attach me to fake conversations with themselves, with the FBI and the courts that have been planting evidences with a whole bunch of people on the sides of campuses through time, too. All kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and delusions these courts have with personal and professional criminally foreign influence, with foreign and domestic medical families of mental health. These are not legitimate people with their passions and emotions about what they think about mental health. They've been running in to hide live progressions with fire departments too, self-valuing how they have rules with Russians and in Ukraine. At the same time, they're doctors associated with them at Hartford Hospital, involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes, delusions, criminal foreign influences, all kinds of natures of organized crimes at the same time. And they won't get onto paper since I was a kid. And they're switching and forging names into branch. And when I put titles proper, they get taken away. I just put a YouTube title, it's taken away. About MSNBC, CNN. The CNN has sources involved with Russians in Ukraine. Increasingly, the map is one of the things they brought up. They're refusing to identify themselves and pretending not to realize with the courts and with the Facebook pages of CNN, involved with courts and prosecutors and judges and foreign influences and tactical delusions with their readings of statutes and precedents. They've been putting predicate acts in their databases and collusions with names on all sides of cases, including the lawyers. Trantola has all kinds of wire crime acts and methods and relative delusions and identity theft frauds and slanders and federal evidences rackets with judges and prosecutors, the family members of mayors, foreign and domestic family, police people tied to the police chief's lawyers, the FBI's lawyer, Robert Cheverry, people next to his place through time. In other words, people with the name Maiano and Spada will record, confess, demonstrate, confirm their educators and their family members associated with the campuses involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with probate court judges and their family members, and ones involved with them with their intimate ties, like a Della Fair family, involved with judges and prosecutors, with my neighbors and people that grew up and around my age group. I never even saw on campuses putting fake things in databases, collusions, planting evidence on all sides of my house rolls. And they don't even know it themselves. Everyone's speaking through others. The same thing is done to themselves too. There are proofs of there are multiple threats to kill people, rape people in the area through time, and with the people involved with the intelligence that actually had roles with that. There's a Mark Violet, and Eric Oliveri, who sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. People from other areas came here that have roles with intelligence families near me, and a Joshua Stryker at Trinity College putting fake things in databases with FBI Director Robert Luskin and people from other countries and the family members of his co-defendants who have been putting things with people next to each of the campuses I went. They're increasingly making ties between those people as collusions with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and with the family members at the campuses I had nothing to do with. They're putting whole fake things in. It's not just against me, but people can only speak for themselves. They have rules. That's why they have rules, changing and faking what people say and pretending that's their free speech. The news has been directed to lie. All kinds of ways they're using the rights to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. James Comey is one of the ones reported doing that, but also while tactically delusions raw. Also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, increasingly roles with people with like WFSB also has roles with satellite locations. And I told you guys we're going to go deeper and deeper into your games here with the people that attach me to fake conversations with you. You are leaking. And you're going to examine your sources were leaking and roles with predicate acts with you, and more with the principal upskirt nature. I caught worse than that, including more sexual and medical and overt criminal enterprises with the same names with the judges and prosecutors, personally and professionally, with doctors forging names, switching names, putting whole fake sequence through the mail, and they won't communicate with me. Increasingly, they've been hiding what I recorded, credible threats on the kids and abuses of them through the campuses and with names next to them because it's been so long manifest. Increasingly, there are people on the streets of people who have been speaking into the town offices meetings and the Board of Education, who are increasingly involved with people with already proven child abusers, leaders of the kids, first forced, including people with increasingly roles of wire and mail crimes, and with Harper Hospital and the names next to it. Wethersfield, Connecticut has people on Church Street, Wethersfield, increasingly involved with names on the sides of Harper Hospital, involved with drugs and medicines crimes with them, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. There are educators involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, pretending fake things with them. That's why they can't get on campus, because they already put people fake ties to each other, including fake ties between campuses, leaders, including, in other words, where they use the sides of the parks. They have more. They have teachers that are a couple, also affected as their roles next to the site entrances to Millwoods Park, are increasingly involved with people who have been putting predicate acts in databases and with courts and other police forms, plural, and multiple police departments as names who have roles with the names planting predicate acts on all sides of my house. I recorded this a bunch of ways and recorded them since I was a kid, recording fake things to cover up what I've caught them doing. uh, more than one people with the name Demoro recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they're involved with lying to with my neighbors, involved with wire crimes with the police, and falsified police reports, and court switching and forging names, and stacking predicate acts in their databases as collusion slash S with a whole bunch of distinct natures of organized crimes at the same time. These are not legitimate police forms families, even though they are collusion with multiple police departments at the same time and other police forms, like Whiting Forensics, is increasingly involved with wire crimes and predicate acts with names on my street and at net relative crime scenes that were years ago, long term, and years ago, like 10 years ago, connected. They're increasingly getting connected too. There are time uses of it recorded. Things are recorded on Facebook between social media. On Facebook, Joshua Julian is also on YouTube, involved with predicate acts with police on my street, forging and switching names, with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, and people involved with them enter cities and names next to campuses they put in their fake transcripts. They describe like where there are campuses filmed 24/7. The agencies do things like with the foreign influences too. They need to cover up things, so they put like pretend things were filmed. They put fake transcripts. They describe behavior racketeering worse than war crimes, tactically delusions raw. The Republicans and the Democrats sickly distinctly right through parties. They have been showing fake transcripts to presidents. In other words, increasingly Hartford Hospital has roles with people that won't communicate with me as doctors. In other words, like tied to a Leahy family that pretended I communicated with them. So we're gonna have to get them and Brian Silver involved with Connecticut District Court with a whole bunch of people, with prosecutors and judges, and the FBI Director Robert Luskin involved at the same time, with Thaddeus Grabowski, with two Mendez police involved with fabricating police reports, and since they were kids, with men and women, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and roles putting fake police reports, fake ties to the little kids in databases with the police too. Whole fake thing. I never even went to the police station as a kid. They pretend I went and I had a police report. I never gave a police report with them. In other words, they're faking things, right? And they're using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, with other police departments, other police forms, as the ones involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and federal agencies, foreign and domestic family members, foreign and domestic military, has roles increasingly on all sides of Hartford Hospital and of the Wethersfield Community Center, with people involved increasingly at other locations involved with predicate acts tied to that. They have people associated with the Bayrock Street, and where they had that sign near the three spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. Whoever did that. Increasingly, a Joshua Schumack is also one of the ones with a Joshua Julian and a Joshua Stryker. Intercities involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and predicate acts with facts, putting fake things in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. Increasingly, a Joshua Stryker is a little fake, lying about himself and others behind people's backs. And when it wasn't even in my grade, when I never even saw him around, I walked by him one time. We had no words, and that was to make a fake exception. Increasingly, these are people with a whole bunch of different countries. These are people involved with Afghan leaders and kids years before the Afghan conflicts and things like that. In other words, A through Z are kept systems tactical ulterior from how we are a human species body of individual bodies with all group differences. And they have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, readings of religious books, all sides of a religious spot on Route 3 are roles of people who attach me to fake conversations with people in my family that I don't even know, and others, my teachers, fake and changed communications with everyone around me since I was a kid. And those are the ones I caught recorded. And I didn't have even conversations with my family about this to keep it, because that's part of the way I have things recorded. Part of the things they're doing against everyone sickly distinctly is attaching everyone to fake and changed communications with everyone around them, bringing things before courts They have and had collusion with the same house through time. You know how many all sides of criminal and civil cases already in prisons and people at the corrections offices have roles with a DeMoro family and a Cololo family with some overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act rules grouping criminal enterprises wrong, rules criminally foreign influence with child offenders, including sexual and medical. They're just putting whole fake things in databases no one's looking into relative to the overt delusions and criminal foreign influences that have allowed people to get away with pretending it's not significant, where and how we have black people's rights of eyes and such replaced, where they have subjects like slavery, where this is inseparable, because nature's projecting where and how why we have black pupils, whites of eyes, where and how why the fish have two eyes, distinctly but non-distinctly, simultaneously / hyper simultaneously, for that which we can be systems ulterior from with positive and negative, but it will increasingly demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that we are not appreciating positive and negative the way it's showing us with science properly. With the nature of debate proper, there are styles with the nature of debate that change and fake what people say. And this is why it's important, too, to understand how nature shows us that communications is simultaneously greater than and more finite than what is said, has active relativity to it that way, too. For example, America's founders did not have free speech, and they had to pretend other. Everyone's speech was, to an extent, measured and maintained an extent of singular collusion / collusions being generated by that singular collusion with the breaching method that no one wanted collusions with, but no one had any other choice. Just like the different jobs with slavery, no one had a choice. You know, so someone might self-value if they got a better job, but they're not really self-valuing it, for example. Exceptions in exception nature have been entertained like sickly, used as systems tactically ulterior from this one we are as the human species body of individual bodies. Clearer than day, there were a whole bunch of criminally foreign influence uses and natures of organized crimes at research locations, including campuses, further as campuses. In other words, because their database identities of relativity to ourselves and to itself. That identity, which is no one could be, but everyone can't help be it anyway. We could ignore its system, hypernative pure, but it will demonstrate with force negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, and force space nature transfer, and a special difference transfer. Earth has a special difference we have ignored too long as only one species. That's why and how the Earth is, even the ocean is polluted. The entire ocean is polluted to an extent. And all the fresh water, the suburbs were designed by a torture, extortion, slavery method. The only reason people could get away with making that appear to be debatable is because increasingly there are self-valued, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw factual nature, quality aspects, and natures of things relied upon. With fact, that wouldn't be had we had liberated, unabridged campuses and reason. They have a shell game with the people involved with the sexually themed rights cliques, measured and made. How could the sexual be compared equal with black pupils, whites of eyes replaced? And how could it be? How could anyone leave that out? How the breaching method too? The breaching method reassigned what nature communicates with black pupils, whites of eyes. The breaching method reassigned what nature communicates with everything. Black pupils. None could see the whites of eyes as yet, so do not shoot. We are in a semi-ancient trap. Each country is sickly distinctly hurt by the breaching method that is not A through Z, but it effectively made A through Z only capable of blaming A through Z for things that a breaching method caused. That was not A through Z. It is not A through Z. There are styles, needs, and natures that are shown they have to use that, including their nature itself, to force, trick, hurt, persuade at locations and now online. Quality, fact, human nature, collusion /S. With that, only allowed to be witch trials were criminally foreign influenced. And the difference of the other countries, the criminal enterprises, terrorists, or themselves, worse for that was just used also by the undiscerned. Hyperforeign. To appreciate it, you have to appreciate the scientific value of the human fact, human nature breaching method. That is one of the things that is true always. What slavery was about. It was entrenched in northern colonies, southern colonies, and roles with it were sustained, and then America's founders were born. And we were directed to, we were directed to refer to them plural as James Madison singular. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan. And that plan was to go at key locations to force other founders and make them break the rules. The torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery, therefore physical slavery of everyone rules. And then have no ways to defend themselves, but to rely upon the unity given to them by James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan. And then George Washington agreeing to begin as the first president /chief. No, I don't know when that came in formally, but nature shows us that there are three natures of Native American founders before America's founders were born. And there are three natures of America's founders further. Hyper additionally, once are as those, like for example, on their own without our founders, again hyper additionally, but as them coupling with the plural part of our founders, we are supposed to refer to singular as the singular person of James Madison and of his plan. Partially too because no one had free speech. Even once James Madison was the fourth president, he still didn't have free speech. They declassified this. There was a breaching method with crazy, crazy, crazy laws. And with sustained roles with all that caused. Roles with uses by the breaching method of having everyone blame other things other than themselves for what that caused. Where what that caused was the answer. See, the breaching method is an answer. It's one of the answers that are true always. There are answers that variably things like slavery were about. One of the things that it was about true always was a human fact, human nature breaching method. And no, I'm not even a lawyer. It was a predicate acts with facts delivery system method. And we have means to discern all sides of criminal civil cases, lawyers, courts, judges, prosecutors, the positions with the courts, the news names, the insidiousness of people A through Z. They had self-relevant roles and still do with the same sequence shifts, the same predicate acts with facts illusions, the same Boolean logic in nature as criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness nature. Nature itself shows us to label it this way 3 ways. That singular identity of human factory nature breaching method being a scientific value of one of the things true always. That those laws were value as. They were a value as a singular hyper a human factor be nature breaching method. In other words, and so, and our founders communicated this. But where that's an answer that's true always, it's replaced. We can observe this, and people are reliant upon said criminally foreign influence, factor be nature, quality aspects in nature as collusion / S. Again, with each age of fact should be nature. Each age of campus is criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought from off its locations. But then further hyper additionally through other apparent motivations, nature's needs, interests. Before they made a criminal, before they have criminal instances real and made up, because they make them up too, including the real things they change and fake what's actually recorded and use such to hide what's actually all the names involved, including other countries' overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Increasingly collusion / S with nature's medical campuses and fire campuses running into the medical campuses, the family members of the fire campuses, to hide life progressions, to be part of all sides of perspective, like where they're putting fake audio and video at campuses, including medical and colleges and universities, filmed 24/7. They're putting fake transcripts, fake ties, fake natures of ties between people. This is also relative to how investigators. There are so many ways we can discern that they are being and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and pretending others since founding. Because other is recorded as the answer of our questions, as answers to our questions, like the human factor nature breaching method. Again, but it's replaced with as the answer, as one of the answers that nature itself and our founders communicated to us. But we have our founders' communications replaced, and there are roles self-valued with uses of what they said, leaving out how the breaching method was measuring and maintaining what everyone said, collusions against themselves to an extent. Themselves as the human volume science. Humanity as properly voiced. Shall they have humanities with the plural? All kinds of natures of organized crime with the leaders of the kids, and the difference of them as the victims or the victims predators, hyper predators, because it's relative to abuses of their kids or the kids around their kids. Increasingly, these databases, the campuses have connections between them with people building upon predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Increasingly, there are KKK, Black themed, Confederate flag themed, Latino themed, Italian themed, Korean themed, Russian themed, Ukrainian themed, and their medical people and people tied to databases with them putting predicate act, timed collusions with their differences and with other people's names, faking passions, emotions, fake ties, fake natures ties to people. I minded my business in life. In other words, specifically to demonstrate this recording, because what they're doing is putting people that aren't even the same class, but they're in the same grade now, and they refer to that as a class too. No, this is a perfected identity theft, fraud, slander method. That's 3 ways manifest where it is value. That singular way is a human factor nature breaching method, for example, as one of the singular ways it's manifest. And as per how nature shows us, because nature shows us there are other things that is like race, and people call it racism. That's one of the things that is variably, because the breaching method wrote that into it. So it would be called that. And it can measure and maintain people fighting to defend the variable as fakes while pretending other. In other words, instead of addressing with things that is constantly true as value as a human factor nature breaching method. And so we paid attention. There were torture, extortion, factor nature, slavery laws against every single person, including our founders, and then our presidents, which are distinct from our founders. One could say, well, they were founders too, but in other words, for the dictionary definition, but our founders clarified this for us. They referred to us, they directed us to refer to our founders, plural, as James Madison, singular, and to understand his plan to counter, extort, and force the rest of the founders to break the laws and do an extent of damage control to the fact, human nature, torture, extortion, slavery method. But we know they had to leave it entrenched and rolls with it. Slavery was still entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies. The northern states are still incapable of housing free bodies. The ground is tactically denatured below our feet. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born to a great extent. Tactically denatured and to be a landscape theater, not realizing, or realizing but not to the extent of it, how it is exploited, how we are value nature systems tactical terror from nature's. This breaching method forced Native Americans, forced countries A through Z. Differences, group differences A through Z. And Native Americans A through Z. Before they were Native Americans, before Americans' founders were even born, before Columbus came to America, there are proofs already the human fact, human nature had forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded other things, others, or selves to be blamed for things that it did and was maintaining, specifically to have that self defended, specifically to hide behind that increasingly without anyone realizing how it could use all location/s, how it criminally re-engineered the database databases identity/identities of relativity/hyper-relativity to ourselves, that the republic for which we stand, that its campus's Marseilles system, and that its pantheism system, to look through the isms and be led by the singular, hyper invisible but still discernible, that English was revealed to teach about, for example, with other ancient languages, before the sciences became abridged and incapable of having appreciated or having discerned how the sciences share an identity, and where and how they appear not to. How comes the demonstrations of the same thing? And about, like, for example, how it is hyperditional nature. It shows us with every subject the ability to discern the body of that which is true always and its way, generating all other ways, even things made up, even positive or negative to itself, though. It shows us a special differences, and Earth has a special difference. Even when there are real good reasons for us to go to outer space, like, Godspeed, Elon Musk, reportedly, he has to design something to get someone out of space, trapped in a spaceship. So, in other words, every individual voice, as a breaching method knew, even if they are leaders of people, even if they are a grouping of countries, of the most powerful countries, the individual leader, if they are above locations, areas, and states, entertain quality aspects of fact, tribute nature as is, they can't entertain that and afford to be discerned the proper defenses of themselves or anyone around them. The breaching method knew this. In other words, you guys aren't supposed to bring up the value of jobs, leaving out the breaching method's employment, of the difference of the overt criminal enterprise and private ones, and roles with use of location/s. Increasingly, New Britain, Connecticut has a Central Connecticut State University, and there are intelligence families that work there. They also have roles with houses next to them. And they're involved with people with Connecticut's judicial branch offices and corrections offices in Wethersfield, but at town lines. and they are being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence to a time. All kinds of wire crime acts and methods, predicate acts methods. No, I criminally foreign influence acts with WFSB. Connecticut's Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others, also demonstrating they had roles with the Saudi attackers leading up to the World Trade Center attack context in it and since, and with a whole bunch of people tied to and as one's name Scalora, who are increasingly involved with people who with child abusers, leaders of kids, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Increasingly, people with Scalora involved with Glastonbury intelligence have roles also with a Phil Cololo, with some sexual and medical offenders with whiting forensics, like a principal upskirt nature is further involved with a Bob Chase with whiting forensics, and a Phil Cololo involved also with multiple police departments with a Ray Cololo and a Joshua Julian. Also on the Facebook page, Joshua Julian was on the Facebook page of the principal upskirt nature, and he was involved with predicate acts with his syntax, with judges and prosecutors in foreign and domestic medical families, and military and Coast Guard associated with him and with his neighbors, increasingly get involved with the identity theft, fraud, slanders. These are people that act too. So we make fake exceptions sometime and have someone take a picture or see you standing next to them and then pretend they know you. Mark Violet did that with houses all along Ridge Road, and with a Mazzucato family involved with Police Chief Cintron and his his daughter's involved with Mazzucato Bakery. Per people involved, I never saw her in my life, and they're involved all along roads and routes. And years before, they had Mazzucato Bakery at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill. They were involved with people on my street with predicate acts with them, and a whole bunch of people that were in classes with me, that were put in classes with me, that I have never had communications with, and others that had changed and fake my communications with them were. Increasingly, the ones involved with wire crimes of the police departments, forging and switching names and refusing to get on paper. They have people involved with poisons and weapons and threats. And then punk games where the people non-verbally confirm their roles with the threats. So they have violence. They want to lie about what came first. They want to control violence, including with sexual and medical offenders of kids involved with this Phil Cololo. I don't even know where he lives yet. Hey, we're going to get them on paper. Make sure that they stop and make sure they're honest about what happened with the Facebook page in the Britain Superior Court, Harper Court, and Connecticut District Court. And you're to get them on paper with the Fox News, the WFSB, and WTNH and their sources all along Route 175 and its conjunctions like Ridge Road. All along Ridge Road, people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with investigators remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. And what are they doing with the Weathersfield Community Center, all sides of it, with identity theft, fraud, slanders? People went out of their way for that, including fake instances. It's something to do with the Bay Rock Drive. People associated with that too. Conjunctions to Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane. Increasingly involved with people, with judges and prosecutors, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and their family members. A whole bunch of people tied to Mark Violet. I don't know my name. I don't even know their name. They had all sides of criminal and civil cases. And the guy Subby Bagero stole a speaker box from. That was to make a fake exception, knowing me. And the guy he stole the speaker box from, involved with the people with the intelligence family with predicate acts on my street, identity theft, fraud, slanders against other people's kids. Yeah, and with the educators behind people's backs, so they're not going to have the right outcome, and they're building on those predicate acts, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. These are ones with the little sexual circles and cliques next to the campuses, intercities, connected too, and they have roles with the black KKK, Latino themed, Italian theme, identity theft. It's put in the same sequence shifts. No one wants to fight with some deranged strangers. See, there are proofs that they're using that to hide lie progressions, where they use the right to lie, where they don't have the right to lie, relative to how they have other countries in the news, like in the YouTube channel of Judging Freedom. Watch the live streams of Judge Napolitano. Scott Ritter said that the world almost ended not too long ago. In other words, A through Z, the suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. They have collusions here as a certain type of victim / hyper victim. But if you want to treat it like that, it's still a collusion. We have to return a collusion. We have to force mandated law proper, and we'll get to the hyper reform. But you guys can't get the right outcome. You have Sandy Hook campuses and the Connecticut corrections offices have people with the name DeMauro and Cololo and a Lance Cuddy. I never had a word of conversation with Lance Cuddy. He's increasingly involved with some sexual and medical offenders of kids with the World Trade Center in New York. We're also in the court next to it with people that are also next to the state corrections offices, foreign and domestic military. A bunch of people that have been spreading lies about me to the people that run the boxing gyms and next to their houses involved with, they bring up murders got brought into it, untimely deaths, including at Trinity College. That's why they need to get on paper. They hid this from Professor Berger Sweeney. I recorded Intercity's involvements with it, and the Joshua Stryker. He needs to get on paper with them. Don't hide him because he did bad things with the FBI director in their defendant capacities too, and oncoming. In other words, please, let's get them on paper, Judge Napolitano. In Russia, they have Russians involved with this. In Ukraine, at the same time, they're doctors. Let's get them off the fake conversations and be on the paper. Let's go with the Judge Killian, too. A little sexual, criminally foreign influence, deviant with the fucking sick motherfuckers with sexual and medical crimes of kids and their digital speaking their fake things and delusions and records and with their family members. See the family members of the Judge Killian, be ones next to him. Get this creep off the streets. Let's go. Let's get them on paper. Let's go.